Okay, go ahead.
And the people migrated from the east. They found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar.
Okay, real quickly here, two things that are happening. In verse 1, it says that, and I talked about this, I think, in this class last week, but when they left Eden, where did they go? Out of Eden, which direction did they go?
East.
East. Okay, so here's Eden, and they were taken east out of Eden. Okay, and then God put the cherubim there with a flaming sword to keep them in there. Well, the same thing is happening in this account. These people are east of Eden. Okay, this is the land of Shinar. It's mentioned about 9 times in the Bible. The land of Shinar is, it's mentioned in Jeremiah, it's mentioned in Daniel. It's the land where Babylon is. It's the land where Persia is today. And where is Jerusalem? It's over in this area. When the people disobeyed, they were kicked east of there and over into these lands. Okay, so it's a picture of disobedience of the Jewish people being kicked back into the place where they had migrated from out of the Garden of Eden. Okay, the second thing that's going on here is in verse 2. It says here, and it came to pass that they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Then they said in verse 3, to one another, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. I'm not going to get into the significance of that yet. We will in a minute. Go ahead and keep reading verse 4.
Then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth.
Okay, does anybody see a parallel in modern society of what we just read?
Arab, not the Emirate, begins with D, the big state of, Arab state of Dubai. Yeah.
No.
No?
No. What? Read it again. Read verse 4 again and see if you can tell me a parallel of what's going on in the world today.
Then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower and its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth.
I see what you're talking about as far as Dubai, that big building. Okay, but more specifically, what is going on in the world today? We read it in the news every single day. Well, more than Muslims, think globally now, because there's one people in one place. Okay? They're building a tower.
Israel.
Okay? Now, okay, think of it this way. The world right now is talking about getting rid of the US dollar as the supreme currency and doing a what? They want a global currency. Okay? And they are trying to get rid of one particular group of people. Okay? Who? Actually, two. We'll say two groups of people, but they both lead to the same ultimate thing. The Christians and the Jews. When they have in the United Nations, they have their religious day, the Christians are not allowed to participate. They never are, because they say we're the only way to heaven, and nobody wants to hear that. What they want to do is they want to have every religion in the world all singing Kumbaya and rejecting the Lord. And this is what's going on here. They're saying we are going to build a tower that takes us to heavens. And how did they build the tower? Go back one verse and read that again. How did they build the tower? How did they make the bricks?
Ovens.
Okay. From what?
Clay.
Okay, from clay. They make the bricks. What are they doing? They're taking clay, they're mixing it together, and they're making a brick, and they're firing it.
As God had made man out of clay, they're taking the place of God.
Well, that's a good comparison. That's not what I'm looking for, though. What are they doing? They're trying to get where?
To heaven.
They're trying to get heaven. And what are they doing in order to get to heaven?
They're making their own.
Their works. They're working their way to heaven. Let's real quickly divert from this. We're going to go to, let's see here. It's going to take a minute to find this particular verse I want you to read. It's in Numbers, I believe. Hang on, let me see if I can find.
Trying to work their way to heaven.
They're trying to work their way to heaven. This is salvation by works, and that's exactly what's happening in the world today. We are heading back to the same place that we are. They're trying to get one language over the earth. They're trying to get one idea over the earth, but that idea rejects God. And that's what they're doing here. It says, when you build an altar, when you build an altar to the Lord, and now that's it. I was in the wrong book. I don't know, whatever. Go ahead. Anyway, go ahead and read that again.
If you make an altar of stones for me, do not build it with dressed stones, for you will defile it if you use a tool on it.
Okay, what does that mean? Why would he say that? You've defiled that if you've put a tool to it. Don't make it of dressed stones. Why would he say that?
So it doesn't become an idol.
No.
Made by man instead of God.
That's right. There's man's work is involved. That altar is the altar of sacrifice where they go to present themselves before the Lord. Okay? And that's exactly what I was looking for. They are in there. And you'll see this again at the time of Joshua. Okay? When they build a ramp up to the altar, they're walking up to the altar to present themselves before the Lord. They are not to use a stone, an iron tool on it, because if they do, they have put their works into approaching God. And God says, no, it is not by works, but it is by grace. And this is the parallel to what's going on in the Tower of Babel. The people by this time had rejected the Lord. And they had said, I am going to make my way to go to heaven. And what is the most common thing that people say about religion today? What leads to heaven?
Good works.
Well, no, that's the result. But everybody says this, all pass. All paths lead to heaven, right? That's the most common thing that you hear people say. God is sitting on a mountain and everybody goes up by his own way. I hear it all the time. I see people say that all the time. They post it on their religious preference in Facebook. All paths lead to heaven. Why do people do that? It's because they know that if they acknowledge that there's only one way, then they have to follow and obey that one way. That's what they know. They know that already. Right. Instead, all paths lead to heaven. And so I can do whatever I want. I can be me. Right? That's why we have that homosexual bishop in the Episcopal Church. It's because I am going to determine. I'm going to make my own stones and I'm going to make my way up to God. And the truth be damned. And that is what we're facing with these particular passages. So go ahead. Somebody keep reading wherever we were. 11, probably 4, 5, whatever. Oh, and they don't want to be scattered around the whole earth, all right? That was in 4. They don't want to be scattered over the whole earth. Well, we're over the whole earth. So now that because we're all over the whole earth, and because we have all of these different languages, we have now one language for... Do you know that if you fly into any airport in the world, only one language is used? And it's always been that way? Only one language. It's the English language. It doesn't matter if you're a Russian flying into a Russian airport, you use English when you land, okay? There is one language, and that will become more and more so towards the end times, I believe. Anyway, they want one world currency. They want one religion, which means all religions. So you can't have Christianity because Christianity says that not all religions are the same. All the other ones say, yeah, in one way or another, we all believe in the same God, right? And some Christians do that as well. So anyway, there you go. Verse 5, somebody.
But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the men were building. The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other.
Okay, and here we are. We're leading back to one language. We're going from what God had said is wrong back into what we're going. It's like bookends, right? Here's one world, and we're all just, it's all bookends. Anyway, so he's going down to confuse their languages. So the question is, who authored the languages of the earth? All of them. God did. Every language on the earth. Now people, they study, the study of languages, and you see it on PBS, and they say, well, this language morphed into this language, into this language, into this language. No. Within the languages, within the English language, yes, our language has adapted, and that's continued throughout the ages. But the basic languages of the world, the Chinese language, which may have turned into Laos and Vietnam and all that. I'm not saying individual little peculiar languages, but the languages of the world were originally one, and God authored all of the other languages. And I would go so far as to say that God is actively participating in the continued spread of these languages. In other words, he's in control of human history, and people get, too settled in their own language. He confuses them a little bit and sends them on. Now, I'm not saying he actively does that like the Tower of Babel, but it's something that's in us. So we have all of these peculiar languages all around the world. And that is to keep us from solidifying and becoming what God does not want. All right? Anyway, we're going to go down and confuse their language that they may not understand one another. Okay? Verse 8, somebody.
So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city.
Okay, that is where I believe Peleg's name came in, is because this is happening during the lifespan of Peleg, and the nations are divided during his life. I don't think it's the earth being divided physically. I think it's anthropologically, through man being divided. Anyway, that's my opinion. It doesn't mean I'm right, but there are people that will argue those two things about the name Peleg. Okay, verse 9.
That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. Okay, the word Babel means confusion. We use it today. He's babbling, he's confused, okay? And that's why you will see this many, many times, especially like in Jeremiah does it. He's a master of doing it. They will say a word, and then they will say, and that is why this is called this, is because it means exactly the same thing that they had just said. And you'll see that, throughout the Old Testament. You'll see it all over. This, but when translators translate it, they don't tell you that. They say, this is called this, and that is why it is this. And they translate one, but they don't translate the other. And if it's not footnoted, then you have no idea what they're talking about. So good Bibles will footnote what each word means, and you can say, oh, I understand this. And that's why, I always read the footnotes. I don't always read the commentaries, Bible commentaries, because they're usually pretty bland. But the footnotes that explain the Hebrew or explain the differences between texts, because if this text is translating it wrong, and there's another text that translates it right, like Japheth the Elder, you're not going to know unless you read the footnote that tells you it could mean this or it could mean this, and it allows you to come up with an understanding of why something is the way it is. Anyway, footnotes to me are invaluable, but commentaries really aren't. I take commentaries at face value. Anyway, go ahead, read the next one. This is the account of Shem. 2 years after the flood, when Shem was 100 years old, he became the father of
Arphaxad.
And after he became the father of Arphaxad, Shem lived 500 years and had other sons and daughters. Okay, so
this is, remember we started with Noah, and we went through all the sons of Noah and all the different things that's going on. Now we're starting to get back down into the core of the genealogies, which Shem is in the line of Jesus, okay? So they're giving the specific account of Shem. And it says, 2 years after the flood, he was 100 years old, all right? And then he begot Arphaxad, 2 years after the flood. Okay, Arphaxad is mentioned in there, whereas Shem has other sons and daughters. Okay, it says here Shem lived 500 years and begot sons and daughters. Arphaxad is mentioned in there because he's in the genealogy of Jesus. Real quickly, you don't need to turn there, but I'll just read you Matthew, and also Luke will say the same thing. No, Matthew won't. Matthew starts with Abraham. Okay, so you got to go to Luke to understand the genealogy before Abraham. And that would be Luke 3. Hang on a second here. We'll find that real quickly. It's got all of the names of the people. How many names, just kind of curiously, has anybody ever counted how many names there are from God to Jesus in Luke? That was one of the first things I did when I read the Bible. Maybe the second time I read the Bible. 77 names from God to Jesus. Anyway, so yeah, just kind of interesting there. And here it says here in Adam is the father of Seth, who's father of Enosh, of Canaan, Mahalalel, of Jared, of Enoch, of Methuselah, of Lamech, of Noah, of Shem, of Arphaxad. Okay, so that's why we're going through that. We start broad and we get down into the specific. Now, seeing as how I brought up how many names were in the genealogy of Luke, there is a difference between the genealogy of Matthew and Luke. And most of you probably know that. If you don't, there's no error in there. Okay? One of them is the genealogy of the father establishing the right for him to reign on the throne of David. The other one is the genealogy of the mother establishing his Jewish identity. Okay? This is certain in that. There's no doubt about it. And what happens is there is a diversion from the time of King David in the two genealogies.